Okay, so picture this. You've got the roar of 50,000 people, the sun is just blinding, bouncing off the marble, and you have that smell of blood and dust in the air.
It's that image we all have, the Hollywood version.
Exactly. The thumbs down, the emperor looking bored, it's totally locked in our heads. But that's not really the full story, is it?
Not even close. I mean, if you
Yeah.
peel back all those layers of myth, the reality is, honestly, it's stranger and a lot more human than the movies ever get right.
And that is exactly why we're here. We're doing a deep dive into a collection of sources we're calling Blood and Sand. It covers everything from ancient texts to some really incredible archaeology that just came out of Turkey in 2021.
Yeah, some of that new research is fascinating.
Our whole mission here is to figure out who these people actually were, what they ate, why they fought, and, the big question, why a civilization as advanced as Rome built its culture around public death.
That really is the core of it. Why? And to get there, you have to stop thinking of it as just a sport. It's not the NFL with swords. It was a theater of power. It's where Rome confronted itself.
So let's unpack that, because I think most people just assume, it's entertainment. But the origins are so much darker, more solemn.
It's a crucial point. It didn't start as a show. If you go back to the Etruscans, Rome's neighbors, it was a funeral rite, a munera.
Hamanera? Right.
The idea was that shedding blood was this sacred offering for the soul of the deceased. It was a religious thing.
It's just wild to think about that shift. From a quiet religious ceremony to a blockbuster spectacle. The sources say the first games in Rome were what, 264 BC?
Yeah, for a nobleman's funeral.
Yeah.
Genius Brutus Vires.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even in an arena. It was in the cattle market.
Gosh, cattle market.
Imagine that. Just a few pairs of fighters, the small crowd of mourners, very intimate. But that's where the idea of an audience started to take hold.
And that's when the politicians got involved.
That's the accelerant. Suddenly, powerful people realized, wait a minute, I can win votes with this. I can show off my power.
So they basically hijacked a sacred ritual for political gain. I mean, Julius Caesar was famous for it.
A master of it. He'd throw these huge games for relatives who had been dead for years, just as an excuse. And then the emperors, like Augustus and Trajan, they're the ones who turned it into this massive state-run institution.
The scale is just, it's hard to wrap your head around. The research points to Trajan. After the Dacian Wars, he threw a festival that lasted 123 days.
123 days. With something like 10,000 gladiators, at that point, any link to religion was, it was pretty much gone. It was all about bread and circuses.
Panem et circenses.
Exactly. Feed them and entertain them, and they won't notice what's really going on in the government. It was a pressure valve for society.
So this massive machine needs fuel, and that fuel is human beings. Which brings us to the fighters themselves. And the who is where this gets really surprising. I think we all assumed they were slaves, dragged into the arena.
And many were, for sure. Prisoners of war, criminals sentenced to death, the damnati ad gladium. But then you have this other group, the one that messes with the narrative, the octorati.
The volunteers. This is the part I just can't get my head around. Free men, and even some women, who willingly signed up for this.
And the contract was brutal. They legally agreed to be, quote, burned, bound, beaten, and slain by the sword. They were giving up their rights as a citizen.
But why? What could possibly be worth that?
I mean, think about it. If you were a poor Roman, you were invisible. But in the arena, you could be famous. There was money, a signing bonus, the adoration of thousands. For some, it was a lottery ticket worth the risk.
That fame aspect is huge, but their actual life. Let's talk about the barley men. This detail just completely shattered my perception of them.
Oh, yeah. You picture these guys as, pure carnivores.
Totally. Like Conan the Barbarian, just eating a massive leg of lamb.
But the science, the bone analysis from the gladiator cemeteries, tells a completely different story. They were mostly vegetarian.
The hordadari. Barley men.
Exactly. Lots of barley, beans, dried fruit. A really carb-heavy diet.
And this was deliberate, right? It wasn't just because meat was expensive.
It's strategic. That high-carb diet builds up a layer of fat, not shredded six-pack abs, but bulky. That fat layer acted like padding.
Like armor.
It protected their nerves and blood vessels from surface cuts, so they could bleed for the crowd, make it look super dramatic, without actually taking a fatal wound.
It's ancient biohacking. And speaking of which, we have to talk about the ash tonic.
Oh man, it sounds awful, doesn't it?
It sounds disgusting. They drank wood ash mixed with water.
They did, and the bone chemistry tells us why. Their skeletons show these incredibly high levels of strontium.
Which you get from wood ash.
Right. It was a privative calcium supplement.
Yeah.
It made their bones denser, more resistant to fractures from all that training. They were literally engineering their bodies for combat.
So you have these barley-fed, ash-drinking guys living in the Ludus, the training school. And that environment seems like such a contradiction.
It really is. On one hand, it's a prison. You're owned by the Lanista, who was sort of looked down on in society, but was also incredibly powerful. On the other hand, it was a brotherhood.
A fraternity.
Yeah, they trained together, ate together. They even formed burial societies, collegia, to make sure their fallen comrades got a proper funeral.
Mm.
And looming over all of it was this philosophy. Memento mori.
Remember, you will die.
They were constantly reminded of it. It was psychological conditioning. It wasn't just about learning to fight, but learning how to die well. That was part of the show.
Okay, so let's get to the show. It's game day. We're at the Coliseum. And the place itself was an engineering marvel.
It was a machine. That whole underground area, the Hypogeum, was filled with elevators and trapdoors.
So things could just pop up out of the sand.
Exactly. Gladiators, scenery, wild animals.
Yeah.
Appearing out of nowhere. Pure shock and awe.
And before the fight, there's the procession, the pompa, and that famous chant.
Ave Imperator, morturi te salutant.
Hail, Emperor, those who are about to die salute you. I mean, talk about setting the stakes.
It frames everything. This isn't just a sport.
But the fighting itself was very technical. It wasn't just a brawl. The different classes were like a game of rock, paper, scissors.
That's a perfect analogy. It was all about creating interesting matchups. So you'd have the Murmillo. He's the tank. Big shield, sword, heavy helmet.
And he'd fight against the Retiarius, the net and trident guy.
Right. And the Retiarius seems so vulnerable. No helmet, no armor. But his advantage was speed. He could dance around the slow, lumbering Murmillo and try to entangle him in the net.
Speed versus power.
And then they'd even create a specific counterclass, the Secutor or Chaser, with a smooth helmet designed so the net would just slide right off. It was all very deliberate matchmaking.
Okay, so this is where we have to bust a huge myth. Thumbs down.
Ah, yes. The great movie myth.
Every movie has it. Thumbs down means kill, thumbs up means live. But the sources say that's probably wrong.
It's way more complicated.
Okay.
The term is police verso turned thumb. Some evidence suggests that a thumb pointed out, like a stabbing motion, meant death. But a closed fist, with the thumb tucked inside, meant sheathe your weapon. Mercy.
So we basically have it backwards.
It's likely. But the bigger myth is that every fight was to the death. Gladiators were an enormous investment. You don't just throw that away.
And they had referees, the Sumarutus?
Yes, they could stop the fight. And if a gladiator was defeated, he'd raise a finger to surrender. The decision then went to the crowd and the sponsor. Mercy, missio, was actually pretty common, especially for a crowd favorite.
But when the verdict was death, it became ceremonial again.
Very. The loser was expected to kneel and accept the final blow without flinching. Then attendants dressed as Roman gods would come out. One dressed as Charon, the ferryman of the underworld, would hit the body with a mallet.
Just to be sure he was really dead.
Just to be sure. It's haunting.
It is. But on the flip side, for the ones who survived and won, they became superstars, like modern athlete level famous.
Oh, absolutely. The graffiti from Pompeii is full of it.
Yeah.
You see things like Celadus, the heartthrob of the girls. They were sex symbols. Kids played with gladiator action figures made of clay. They were household names.
And some of their stories are just unbelievable. The one that I can't get out of my head is Flamma.
Flamma is the ultimate psychological puzzle. A Syrian fighter. He fought 34 times, which is just an insane number for that profession.
And he won his freedom multiple times, right?
4 times. He was awarded the rudis, the wooden sword that meant he was a free man.
4 times he could have just walked away and lived a normal life.
And 4 times he said no. He signed a new contract and went back into the arena.
That's the part that's so hard to understand. Why? Why choose to stay in that world?
We can only guess, but, I mean, think about his choices. Outside, he's a poor ex-gladiator, a nobody in Roman society. Inside the arena, he's a god. He has the fame, the money, the adrenaline, the roar of the crowd.
So it's like an addiction to that intensity, a fear of being normal.
I think it has to be both. He died at 30, is a short life, but one lived at a fever pitch. He chose the cage because maybe the cage was the only place he really felt alive.
That is just so powerful. And then you have the complete opposite, a story of incredible sportsmanship, Priscus and Verus.
Right, the only fight that was recorded in detail by the poet Martial. They fought for hours, a perfect stalemate. In the end, they both just surrendered at the same time out of mutual respect.
And Emperor Titus was there,
And he was so moved, he declared them both winners and gave them both their freedom on the spot. It shows the crowd valued skill, not just bloodshed.
We should also mention the women, the gladiatresses. They were rare, but they were real.
Definitely. There's a famous carving of two of them, Amazon and Achillia. And like Priscus and Verus, they fought so well it was declared a draw. It shows the arena was a weird place where even the strict Roman gender roles could get blurry.
It really held up a mirror to their entire society. But, of course, it all came to an end. What was the final blow? Was it morality?
It wasn't just one thing, it was a combination. Economics was huge, the empire was struggling. These games were incredibly expensive to put on.
So the money ran out.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you have the rise of Christianity, which saw the games as a brutal pagan ritual. It was morally repugnant to them.
And then there's the story of the monk, Telemachus.
The legend says he jumped into the arena to stop a fight, and the crowd stoned him to death. The emperor supposedly used that as the final justification to ban the games for good in 404 AD.
But people's tastes were also just changing, weren't they?
They were. Chariot racing at the Circus Maximus became the new obsession. Still dangerous, still a spectacle, but less personal. The Colosseum just fell silent.
But we're still digging up their stories. That find in Turkey from 2021, it shows this history is still alive.
Oh, absolutely. It was a gladiator cemetery, and the tombstones have these amazing details, inscriptions that mention their trainers, their victories, even their families.
It humanizes them.
It completely does. It shows they had lives and loves outside the arena. And the forensic work on the bones confirms other things, too, like the quality of their medical care.
Right, the healed fractures.
We see these skeletons with bones that were broken and then healed perfectly. They had better doctors than the average Roman citizen.
Because they were a valuable asset.
Exactly. You protect your investment. They were just disposable bodies. They were prize fighters.
And now they're using AI to reconstruct the experience.
Yeah, modeling the acoustics, trying to figure out what it would have sounded like to stand in the middle of that sand with 50,000 people screaming. We're getting closer to understanding the sheer sensory overload of it.
So when you put it all together, the politics, the diet, the superstitions, the fame, who were they?
I think they were one of history's great paradoxes. They were victims of a brutal system, but some were also celebrities who chose to be there. They were slaves and superstars. They embodied this Roman idea of courage and dying a good death.
It's uncomfortable, but you see the echoes of it today, don't you?
You absolutely do. We don't have fights to the death, but our obsession with combat sports, with reality TV fame, we still build arenas.
The arena has just changed shape.
Like, it might be an octagon, it might be a social media feed. But that human hunger for high-stakes spectacle, for watching people on the edge, that hasn't gone anywhere.
Which brings me back to Flamma. I just keep coming back to him.
The man who had the key.
He had freedom in his hand 4 times and chose to go back in the cage. It makes you ask, what is it about that roar of the crowd that's so addictive? Was he more afraid of a quiet, normal life than he was of a sword?
Or was that the only place he felt he truly existed?
That is a thought that is going to stick with me. He chose the cage.
He chose the cage.
Well, on that note, I think that's where we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thank you for listening to us sort through the blood in the sand of ancient Rome.
My pleasure.
If you enjoyed this, definitely check out the source material we've linked. That 2021 study is really fascinating. There is always more to learn. Until next time, stay curious.